Hello. We have one participant. Okay, let me join in the second channel because go live. Because the first channel somehow the messaging system participant here. Okay, I'm gonna start to say that on one of the channels, let me do a full. First, let me check if I need to close something on this computer, and then I can do a full screen, and I'm gonna show you that one. Why do I stream on two channels? One of them always doesn't work, and I don't know why. So share screen. How do I share screen? Share screen. Share screen. Hey, there must be a button here. Entire screen. Okay. I'm sharing screen on the first live streaming. Now I'm sharing screen on this. I need to share screen on the second. Entire screen. Screen share. Okay, so both of the channels now are fully screen shared. Let me just show you on the AI School Oxford, the messaging system doesn't work. So you see here, if you send me a message on the channel that is this one, AI School Oxford, this one here, I'm not going to be able to see it. There's some error. And that's why I always stream on two channels. So this is the Oxford Research School, and here the messaging system works fine. So you can ask me questions. If you got 5 questions. So we're starting the 5 questions have been sent on the Oxford Research School channel, not on the AF School channel. So those are the two different. I help students write their master dissertations. It's not necessarily related to Oxford. I work for Oxford, so this is. Let me just show. Uh, if I just type my name in Google, and here you can find my profile. That's me. I work for the University of Oxford Department of Computer Science. But many of the things that we do on this program, I teach on the professional master's program. Many of the things that we teach in this program are quite practical for students to have chance to write more practical work. And the YouTube channel is to answer questions that maybe we didn't cover in the program, but also to make it more specific. And here I advertise those on my work profile as well. So that's me. Enough about me. Let's go back to the questions. Welcome to. So one of the YouTube joiner. I don't see your names, by the way, so you can do this anonymously. I just have this person saying that I have 5 questions. Please fire the 5 questions and try to keep your confidentiality. Try not to mention your name. This is recorded. It's going to go live, and the questions should be about your postgraduate dissertation, how to write dissertation. Don't ask me how to cook pancakes. Google can do a far better job in that than me. So I'm waiting for the 5 questions, which somebody said that they have 5 questions, but I'm not getting the 5 questions. Is it please ping me a message you are here, or I'm not seeing the this is what I'm seeing. I've got 5 questions, but I don't see the 5 questions. So if I can give you a few seconds, then in the meantime, I'm going to be talking about research dissertations in general. In this session, I'm going to talk about master. Yeah, in the last session, I spoke about the structure, how master dissertation needs to be structured: introduction, literature review, methodology, data analysis, conclusion. In this section, I'm going to talk about methodologies. And we're going to look at a few different methodologies. So first, what is a methodology and why do you need to have a methodology? And again, this is not, there's loads of people who disagree that you need to have a method, but let me ask you a question. When you leave the house and you go to do your shopping, do you just go to the shop and you don't know what you're gonna buy? So research methodology is just basically the structure that you're gonna use in your writing your master dissertation. That's all that it is. And people say that, even professors say, you don't need to have a research methodology. You're gonna use research methodology. Are you going to describe it and define it in a sentence or two in the dissertation or not? You gonna have it. You cannot write anything without a methodology. You have to have a process of how you're gonna analyze the data, what are the tasks that you're gonna do, how you're gonna conduct them. So all that discussion about do I need research methodology or not, if you disagree with me, put your shirt back on. I'm not going to try to persuade you. You're going to use a methodology, if uh, even if you think that you didn't. When you drive a car, do you just drive a car? Do you just go into the car and drive the car? No, you have a process. You have a method that you apply. You steer. You look at the mirror. You have gas pedals. Let me see. So I'm waiting for the 5 questions here, but there are no 5 questions. So this person, if I refresh the screen, then um, if I refresh the screen, then I might lose the stream. If I go and check my emails, hold on, I can check my emails on the phone just in case this is a student that is asking me. Somehow he lost maybe the connection. And okay, so I couldn't send. Okay. So here are the 5 questions. Before I go into the question, research methodology, I'm going to come back to this once I answer the question. So the first question here is, can you share your review process for dissertations prior to students' formal submission? View the portal. So the question is, can I share the review process for dissertations before they are submitted to the portal? And I'm going to try to make this more general and not specific to Oxford, because every university has exactly the same procedure. The review process, it's basically you have a supervisor who is helping you write your dissertation. Master's dissertation or an undergrad dissertation or a PhD dissertation, it's for many people, well, leaving the PhD, but for many people, the undergrad dissertation and the master dissertation are the first time that they have contact with independent work. The master dissertation is something that you do. It's your independent research. You have a supervisor, but the supervisor is acting more like an advisor. A supervisor is telling you the things that you need to include because they have completed many projects like that before to save you time. He's not there to boss you about, he's just there to make sure that you follow the guidelines and that you get the best possible grade. That's what the supervisor does. So the review process usually it's as follows. You discuss the project at the beginning to make sure that you don't drift away into some direction that is not academic. Maybe I don't know, maybe you want to do something that is not achievable. That's most often the case. And some people say, no, I don't want to be too academic. You're too academic. And no, not really. That is just in industry settings, many things are happening very fast. And they're invested in times that they matter to them, but the things that they don't matter, they're just scratched and moved on very quickly, which means that they don't want to allocate resources to investigate some research for 3 months if it's not going to benefit the company, if it's not going to help the paycheck. So if you think that somebody is being theoretical to tell you to explain the process of how you're going to do it, that's not being theoretical. Every report, let's say you write report for a company, you need to explain your methodology, you need to refer to existing literature, you need to do those things. How can you build a blockchain if you don't review the literature on existing blockchain? How can you build an AI system if you don't review the state of the art of the AI system? So that's what you do. And what your supervisor is going to do is going to help you include those elements. If those elements are missing, it becomes very visible. We're trained to search for those things. If you're not including those things, what is clear to me is that it's not clear to you what you're doing. And to quote Einstein here, leaving everybody who might disagree with this, to quote Einstein, Einstein said, even the most complex and theoretical thing needs to be explained in a single sentence. If you cannot explain it in a single sentence, it's not clear to you. So if I ask you, what kind of dissertation you're gonna do, and you say, "Oh, I want to do dissertation about yada 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 and yada yada yada," the next question is, "Have you consulted literature?" And you're gonna say, "Well, there is no literature on this topic. What if I log in and find 10 different studies on that same topic?" And most of the time, that is actually the case. And if there is no literature on that topic, is it really a master dissertation? No, it's a PhD dissertation. Masters is when you apply the methodologies that you've learned. It's not about discovering new knowledge. That's PhD. So that kind of question I would ask. The first question I would ask you, what kind of methodology you're gonna apply? And if you don't have a methodology, it's the same like saying I'm gonna jump into this car and drive, and you don't have a driving license. And third, another question I'm gonna ask you is, what is the where you're gonna get the data from this? Because most students they just don't have data. They didn't consider the data. They just have a question that is usually like, let's cure the cancer, and the topic is too big for a master dissertation. So the review is going to start with, firstly, your supervisor should. I don't say that every supervisor does this. Your supervisor should help you narrow the topic so you don't start something that you cannot achieve. The main goal of the supervisor here in the session is to help you narrow it down to something that you can manage. And how your supervisor should help you, it's he should ask you these questions. So if you don't want to waste time, ask yourself the same questions. What is my methodology? What is my data? What is my did I consult literature? Is this a master topic or is this a PhD topic? Is it like realistic that I'm gonna achieve this in a short period of time? Then after that session, maybe you're gonna have one or two follow-up session, and final review of your dissertation is gonna be before you submit, but not the final draft. Your supervisor is not allowed to see your final draft because then he's marking your work. Your supervisor is always going to make some comments to the draft that you submit, and then you make the corrections and you submit. In that way, the final review is not there's no conflict between your supervisor and your examiner because your supervisor does not examine your work. So in other words, the very final text that you submit, you're going to receive very final feedback, and then you make the corrections and submit. Let me see the next question. I prefer if you can guys ask these questions in the chat here. I can see the first message, so I should be able to see the second message, because the interactive session is not very interactive if I'm reading them from my phone. But if it doesn't work, like in this case, okay. And the second thing is, this is not part of the University of Oxford. This is open to the entire world. So if you send me a message to my email and I'm reading the message from here, it's not really the YouTube thing. It's more like Oxford thing, and you all have access to me. You can talk to me on Oxford. Here, the idea is that we record these sessions and we upload them, and then you can come back and watch them at a later stage. Okay, so second question is, work commitments do get in the way. I'll be unable to meet my dissertation deadline on Friday the 9th. That is a very specific thing that this person needs to speak with administration, because it's not something that you ask on a YouTube stream. Um, so if you have that, you need to ask extension. If any student knows that you're not going to be able to match a specific deadline, and I'm sorry, there's a car outside. I left the door open and it's going to drive away soon. Um, but if for any student, if you cannot reach your dissertation, don't wait until the time comes that you miss the deadline and then ask for extension. That's going to be a fail. You need to ask for extension on time, and you need to contact the office. Your supervisor, obviously, you need to contact him, but it's the academic office that makes the decision, not your supervisor. Just to clarify, any problems that you might have in terms of you know that you're not going to be able to submit your work on time, you have to immediately contact the academic office and you log a form. There's always a form about something, but you follow the process. You explain why. You ask for extension. They approve the extension, and you submit at a later date. But as soon as you know that you're not going to make some deadline, you need to act immediately. Um, Academic institutions, not only Oxford, every academic institution. I completed my PhD in the University of Wales, and they had 80,000 students at the time. Manchester Metropolitan, they have around 80,000 students, and it's very difficult to keep track of so many students. If you know that you're gonna have a problem with submitting by deadline, you have to follow the process. Nobody knows otherwise. The academic office doesn't know. They will just consider you a fail because you didn't submit the work on time. If I'm unable to meet the dissertation deadline, what is the extension process? I just explained the extension process. Like there's a form, you fill in the form, you go to every course will have a form, and every course will have a guidelines document. Now I have to make this very clear, and I have to make it in a way that it doesn't sound argumentative. When I first started my undergrad degree, first day registration, when you go there and you're 18 years old and you're with your forms and you're waiting to submit them, there was one guy in the queue that was just kept asking, "How do I fill in this? Where do I find that form? How do I do that?" And one of the professors in that room got a little bit annoyed and said, "If you cannot find a form, you have the forms here on the table. If you cannot find a form, if you cannot fill in the form, you're not going to make it in a university degree. This is not a place for you. Like you have to do this on a regular basis. So go and check your forms, fill in the form, submit the form in the correct process. Here they are on the table. Every university will have a guidelines document. You open the guidelines document, you read the guidelines document. It's a process, you follow the process, and then whatever problems you might have, it might be that you're going to miss a deadline, it might be that people get pregnant, people have children, people find jobs, people get sick, people have surgeries. There's various reasons. You have to explain why you're not going to be able to meet that deadline, and you have to follow the process. If I completed, so the next question is about payment of fees. Now, I'm not going to read the question. Just in general, I'm going to answer this. Anything that is related to money, it's done with the finance team. So universities have different teams that they're doing different things. How you manage the finances of, I was always, my entire education was paid by scholarships, and I had to chase. So the only support that I received from my supervisor in terms of how is the fee payment being processed is that they would send me to the finance office. They would point me out to the correct person that I need to contact in order to resolve that. That is the limit where the supervisor can help. Now, you have to understand, supervisor is employed by the university on a fixed term contract. I'm employed on a fixed term contract. My contract ends in few months' time. And your supervisor is paid to conduct specific tasks. But the university has a different team. It's a finance team that deals with all the issues related to finance. The university has administration team, which is all doing the admin stuff. The job of the supervisor is basically to point you out to those teams, but the job of the supervisor is not to deal with the finance matters. Finance team does that. It's not only that it's not his job, he's not capable. Your academic supervisor doesn't have the knowledge that the finance team has in order to address those things. So your academic supervisor is basically helping you with your academic dissertation, with your academic writing, and he's pointing you out to other people. You're not alone. The universities have many people, many institutions, many different teams, and they're all there to help you. So you shouldn't be afraid to reach out to them You reach out to finance, you reach out to admin, you reach out and say, hey, how is this going to work with the payments? And they're going to send you a document, and you have to read the document. They always send you a guidance document, and they might be, if your question is direct and short, they might be able to answer. But if your question is more about what's going to happen if A happens, and what's going to happen if B happens, and what if C happens and then D doesn't happen, then they're going to send you the guidance document for sure. How would they how they know to trace your mind map that you created? Okay, so that is the next. That is the answer to that question. When you're writing, these sessions are more about how you write your literature review, how you write your research methodology, how to write the research proposal. But here, these are actually quite good questions in terms of other aspects about dissertation. Hold on, I'm gonna miss my coffee. Let me read the last question. The final question is actually quite relevant. Most of the questions have been relevant to students, so I hope they're helpful to whoever is watching this at a later stage. But the fifth question is quite important. Is there a minor change? If there is a minor change in the approved thesis title, do I need to request an approval for this? Yes, but depends how minor it is. If it's minor that you change something very small, no, because that's normal with research. But why did I say yes? Because when your supervisor is asked to mark your work, he's not marking your work, he's just helping you with that. When the work is being sent to the reviewer to mark it, usually the dissertation that you submitted is sent jointly in the same folder with the research proposal. So the proposal and the dissertation is sent, both of them. And one of the questions that is asked from the reviewer, whoever is marking your work, is are the proposals and the dissertations connected? And here you might think, well, why? I'm going to tell you why. Maybe you're doing something that is ethically challenging. Maybe you're doing something that is going to cause reputational damage to the university, to yourself, to your supervisor. And that is why those topics, the proposals, are checked. Now, you're expected that you write whatever you proposed to write. Because if you write about something different, that is not being checked. Let me give you a very abstract example. Imagine that you submit a proposal saying that you're going to work on how AI is going to be used in the fashion industry. But then you change your mind and your dissertation is about how AI is going to be used in the healthcare industry. Well, you see how that is very different because in the healthcare you have patients' data, you have medical data, you have personal data. The healthcare things are more problematic than fashion. What kind of design you're going to create? So I hope this answers your questions. If you had very, like minor change, that's okay. But it's very good to have this methodology conducted beforehand. And in the last recorded session, I spoke about the structure. That is not only the methodology, that you also need to identify the data that you're going to analyze, the method and the data are connected. So let me check if there's more questions here. Uh, okay, so there should be one question. I received an email. And maybe the question was posted on this YouTube channel, and here I cannot see it. So I cannot. There's something wrong with this YouTube channel. I need to fix it. I need to refresh it. But if you can post the question in the other channel, which is this one here, and this one is Oxford Research School. You can find it. Go to YouTube and just type Oxford Research School, and it's gonna show up. So this is the second channel. I'm gonna wait for the question to pop up here because there's another question. Somebody sent me an email. And while I'm waiting for that, I'm gonna talk about research methodologies. Now, here, there's various different research methodologies, and it's not gonna be easy to cover them all, but I'm trying to find a good example. Um, Okay, so let's see this one. No, that's not gonna work. Let me try to open. I'm gonna find some link, and you see, I'm using the internet here, and I'm just trying to find a good and very descriptive content. You can always go back to the actual link if you want to see this, because as you can see, so this is research methodology. As you can see, this is they have methodology, but this is not the way that I would explain it. Here it's explaining how the research methodology is developed is that you have a question that leads to research, research question, and then present and study literature review, for example, that leads to critical analysis, and then you develop some kind of a response and statement that is the discussion. So this is how some people understand research methodology. For me, this is a very unstructured way because it doesn't really tell you what you need to do, the steps. It just tells you, um, it tells you actually what you need to do. You need to develop a question. That question needs to lead to research question. Then you need to develop a precedent study or also literature review. You need to analyze that critical analysis. You need to develop a discussion and the statement. Statement is the conclusion. But that's not how we usually explain it. Um, Let's look at this one. This is another explanation of research methodology. And you're going to see at the end that they all mean the same thing, just that they're explained differently. So it's not like research methodology, the process changes. The actual, oh no, I don't want to log in. The actual methodologies that you use, there are very various different ones, case study, literature review, yada, yada. Oh, I have a call, so I'm gonna have to stop this. Hello. Yes. Hey, hey, how are you doing? No, not today. No. Yes, I received invitation. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Life happens, phone calls, bosses, and, I work part time, which means I'm somehow full time because part time doesn't nobody knows when. Um, Thanks for the tips for previous video how to get good papers. I found a lot of good stuff. My question is when to stop. So my question is when to stop. How many do we need to during the literature review? So the question here is how many papers do you need to conduct a good literature review? Okay. Uh, Jesus, just to mention, there's nothing wrong with using your full name. I use my full name on YouTube. My name is Peter Radonliev. I can show you, I showed you at the beginning my profile, but YouTube should give you an option to ask this question anonymously because the sessions are recorded and maybe you didn't want to, maybe you didn't want to include your name. So since the question is about literature review, let's choose literature review as a research method. So you can see here that there are different types of numerical, experimental, analytical, different types of methodologies. You need to choose which methodology you're going to use. But as you can see here, literature survey is one of the research methodologies. So it's not only that the literature review needs to stop. The literature review can continue for the entire dissertation. But this is a very, very theoretical dissertation. And usually those dissertations that they're based on literature survey are conducted in preparation for a PhD. So if you are doing your master's and you expect to continue into a PhD, to conduct a very theoretical, analytical literature survey on a specific topic that you're planning to research for longer, for 3, 5 years after, that is probably the best option. Any a supervisor will advise you if you're planning to start a PhD that your dissertation is very theoretical, that you conduct a literature survey. Um, Not everybody wants to do that, especially not on the program that I teach, on the professional master's program. There are people that they just want to, do a short experiment like this one here, and maybe that's what they want to end it with, a short experiment. In that case, the literature review is just one chapter of your dissertation. So in the last video, I explained even with the percentage marking of how much you need to allocate per chapter. And so to answer this question very directly, how much if you, so let's look at the question again. Question is when to stop. How many papers do you need to conduct a literature review? I'm going to answer this in three different ways. So first is if you have, let's say, certain amount of time allocated to finish your PhD, your master dissertation, and let's say that time is 3 months, then you abstract from those 3 months how much time you're actually going to invest in it. And if the time is, let's say, 2 hours per week, and 3 months would have 12 weeks, then you multiply 12 times 2 and you get 24. So technically you have 24 hours. So you see 3 months got converted into 24 hours all of a sudden. Then you need to allocate that by percentage. If the total is 24 hours, and if your dissertation, look at the last recording, I allocated percentages for each chapter. So let's say your literature review is 20% of your mark. You need to allocate 20% of the 24 hours that you're going to invest. That is the first criteria. And you need to develop a plan of how you're going to finish that chapter with that time that you have allocated. Because remember, other chapters, if you're going for this experimental research method or the numerical research method, which is here, then the literature review chapter is just going to be that 20%, and you need to focus more on the other chapters. If your literature review is the main methodology that you use, if you're going to conduct a survey, clearly that's a different thing, because in the methodology you will continue with the literature. In the methodology, you're going to discuss how you have chosen the literature review as a method and what is the steps that you're going to perform, what type of literature survey you're going to conduct. Then it's different. But for the purpose of this, let's say that literature review is just one chapter of your dissertation. So then you allocate the 20% or 30% of your total time that you can invest. Second way to answer this is you open Web of Science, you open Scopus, you open Google Scholar, and you search the parameters on this specific topic that you're looking. Then you might get, let's say, 7,000, 10,000 results. If you type, let's say, on Web of Science, the topic AI security, you're going to get around 7,000 results. If you type digital security, you're going to get around 5,000 results on the topic of digital security. Then you use a Boolean function uh, because you need to identify a specific problem within the digital security, let's say. You might narrow it down to a few hundred. And how do you narrow it further down from few hundred into, let's say, 20, 30 that you're going to be able to review? And how do you know that those are the best? Well, if you're into this experimental, and if your literature review is not the actual survey, is not your method, then you're going to apply a different method. And that method is going to be related to some specific problem. How do you narrow from the 100 results that you get on Scopus, on Web of Science, Google Scholar, to 20, 30 that you're going to manage? You're going to select the ones that are using the same research methodology like you. Now, calm down. People are getting upset. People are saying you need to cover the whole literature. You need to cover the most relevant. Let me ask you a question. How is it relevant if you're working on developing a layer 2 solution on blockchain, how is it relevant that you discuss the origins of distributed computing? It's not. You might include one or two of the leading research papers from those days, the leading whoever invented distributed computing, but you need to focus more on the layer 2 solutions. And if you're developing a layer 2 solution on the Ethereum chain, that is very different than developing a layer 2 solution on Bitcoin. So you need to focus on literature that has been developed on those specific solutions. Why? Because that is going to provide you with data sources and further knowledge on how to develop your solution. And even if you go to layer 2 solutions, which is very narrow topic now, they use two different technologies. Usually they use zero knowledge proofs or optimistic rollups. So you have to choose which one you're going to use. And if your dissertation is going to be on optimistic rollups, you have to focus and narrow it down to, let's say, 30 papers on optimistic rollups. I hope that is clear. And a third way to think about when is literature enough, it's enough when you have covered everything that is on that specific topic that you're reviewing. It's also enough when you have covered the leading authors. So if, let's say, somebody has wrote the original paper on AI agents and you don't include that in your literature review, and your literature review is on AI agents, well, you have failed. You're not going to fail, but you're going to get lower mark because you didn't include the leading research paper. So you always include the top ranked research papers on that topics, and then you get more specific into the technologies and the methods that you're going to apply. Again, using the example of layer 2, we went from layer 1s, then whoever before layer 1s, because blockchain is basically databases and cryptography combined. So if you include one sentence to say who invented databases and for what purpose, one sentence on who invented cryptography and for what purpose, ancient Greeks, um, then that's not going to eat into your dissertation. That's going to be two sentences. But if you don't include it, means that maybe it's not clear to you. So include one sentence on how those technologies developed, but don't spend too much time on that, because then you have to move on. And you say things have changed. In 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto published the first paper on Bitcoin. Then Vitalik created the Ethereum chain, and then we have evolved into layer twos. Now, layer twos, they have zero knowledge rollups, you include citation and optimistic rollups. The benefits of optimistic rollups are yada, yada, yada. Therefore, for this specific solution, the optimistic rollups are more suitable and zero knowledge proofs are not suitable. That's one paragraph. In one paragraph, you can cover all that. But then from that point onwards, you really need to look at the specific literature that is on optimistic rollups, on layer twos, on the Ethereum chain. And that's going to be very, very narrow, very limited. There's not going to be many papers on that topic. So once you start from very broad and you get it to the narrow topics, the records will merge. As I said, on AI security, you type AI security as a topic. By the way, my paper is the fifth ranked out of 7,000 on the AI security in the Web of Science. So if you go to Web of Science, you type AI security, you get 7,000 records. Not all of those would be related to the type of research that you're doing. You cannot review all 7,000. You need to narrow it down. And if that narrowing down results with 20, 30 papers, that is usually how much you would use. Let's see if there's another question. There's no more questions, and if there's no other questions, I'm gonna end the stream because it's been 39 minutes. I try to keep them to around 30 minutes. That's usually better. People tend to not attend if it's longer than 30 minutes. So there we are. If you have any questions, please ask. I'm looking at the chat here. Let me see if the other stream is still not working. So that's still not working. And if there is no other questions, I hope people will join on the next session. So how do I leave now? So first, stop sharing, end stream, end stream, end.